Fischer joins me now as he gets ready to face Jimmy Flick on July the 24th for the LFA 125-pound strap. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man, and I'm really excited for this fight. As everyone knows, it's going to be on UFC Fight Pass in front of no fans there at the arena. They're going to keep it nice and quiet due to this pandemic. Tell me, how has this camp been leading up to the big fight?
It's pretty good. It's a little shorter than usual, but it's still, still plenty of weeks.
Now, you're saying you actually have been splitting time between camps. You're actually in Albuquerque right now, down at JacksonWink, and then you train in Maryland primarily. How has that adjustment been?
It's been fine. I've been doing that for a couple of years, so it's kind of just like the ordinary for me.
When you go down there, do you work more with Greg Jackson or Winkeljohn? Do you have one guy that you lean towards more?
Honestly, I've never worked one-on-one with Greg. He teaches classes, and sometimes I pop in the classes. And this is actually the first camp I've ever worked with Wink. I've been coming here for a while, but there's a lot of people coming here, so it's hard to get like the coach attention. But Wink started doing pads with me. Really, one of my favorite coaches I work with here is Harry St. Ledger. He's a great grappling coach, wrestling coach, and he's been helping me for years. So I like coming here and working with him and getting some training partners.
So I want to circle back to this camp in particular before we talk about the fight with Jimmy for the title. Tell me first, how did you get into MMA? What's your backstory for anyone that does not know?
I guess I started probably how most people started. I started as a fan. So when I was like in high school, probably even before high school, I was just a big fan of martial arts, watching it on TV. I wrestled in middle school, high school, but even before I started wrestling, I was watching UFC. My dad used to like watching UFC. He liked George St. Pierre a lot, so I'd watch fights with him, early UFC fights, and just kind of transition from there.
GSP is my all-time favorite mixed martial artist. Second place
Awesome.
Isn't even close. Do you have a favorite of all time? Do you lean towards George as well?
Yeah, GSP is probably my favorite as well.
Yeah, oh, you got good taste. Tell me, how has this pandemic been for you as far as like your ordinary life? I know me personally, it's really turned things upside down. Tell me what it's been like for you and your family.
Everyone's kind of just on high alert. It's scary a little bit. My mom's a nurse, so I don't think she's really dealt with too many COVID patients, because she doesn't work in a hospital, but her and my dad have kind of been on high alert. I've been on high alert, trying to stay social distance, but at the same time, I still got to get my training in. So even during quarantine, I've still been training. I just train with only a handful of people, no big groups, no classes. Gyms back home have been closed. So we've kind of found a way to kind of work around it, as I'm sure most pro fighters probably still been training the whole time. Maybe not as much as they usually do, but people are finding ways to train. Yeah, I mean, UFC is still putting on fights, so people are working.
Yeah, and now a lot of other promotions are gearing up to get back at it as well, just like LFA with your fight. I do understand that you are a movie and a food enthusiast. Can you tell me a little bit about both of those?
Yeah, I don't really even know how I started really getting into movies. I think a big thing is wrestling and fighting and things where you have to kind of make weight and you have fight camps and you can't really just go out to whatever restaurant. You can't go to bars. You can't go to do nightlife. So in between training sessions, or at the end of the night after a long training day, it's cool to just pop on a movie and just kind of get some rest and relaxation. And
do you have a favorite genre? A favorite genre movies, or is there one film that stands out head and shoulders above the rest?
Oh, I like everything. I mean, from comedies to, for a while it was mafia movies were kind of my favorite for years, but really I think Marvel movies now, Avengers Endgame is my favorite movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. I like the Marvel universe because everything's kind of tied together, whereas no other movies have really done that. They've tied one movie into another separately. So I really like how they do that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I love all genres of movie. I'm a huge movie nut. I actually moved out to California for a while and did some small acting stuff. So I'm right there with you, man. I love it, and I'm glad you mentioned mafia movies because your opponent, his nickname is the Brick, Jimmy the Brick. I mean, that sounds like a mobster's name if there ever was one. If you go in and you beat Jimmy the Brick, you're like the new LFA Kingpin, right?
Yeah, I mean it is a title shot, so. The winner of that fight is definitely the Kingpin. But yeah, mafia movies are like I had when I was growing up, my room was probably like I had the Sopranos posters, I had the Goodfellas posters, I have the whole series of Sopranos, Casino, Donnie Brasco, all that stuff. I love it all.
Yeah, yes, sir. Well, you and me are on the same page there. As far as food goes, I know as a fighter, you got to cut down to make weight. I'm not sure how much you have to cut to get to 125. We'll dive into that in a minute. But tell me, as far as foods go, what do you really like? What are your vices? What do you have to stay away from during camp?
I guess like in camp, you want to eat healthy, right? So you're not eating like baked goods and pastries and kind of junk food. I do have a sweet tooth, so I do kind of like junk food outside of camp. But yeah, probably. I'm a big donut guy. I like donuts. I actually a couple years ago, my like most successful fight shirt that I printed was it had a pink donut on it, and it was a lot of people wanted it. So I always do something food related for my shirts. Like I've had a cupcake shirt, a donut shirt, a taco shirt, a cheeseburger shirt. But in camp, I mean, once I just kind of cut that stuff out and the weight cut's not as bad. I can still eat steaks. It's just, the weight cut is just kind of like portion control. Mm-hmm. If you cut out junk food, everything else you can pretty much eat. Just monitor the portions. Yeah. After the fight, steak, I'm kind of looking forward to a nice steak.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask next is what's going to be the post-fight meal?
Medium rare steak for dinner, probably. Some kind of potatoes, but right after the fight, probably a snack. Probably something I haven't eaten in months. Probably, I don't know, because it's in Sioux Falls, so I'm not really familiar with the area, but I'll probably have to look up, like, I don't know, a donut shop or a cupcake shop, something like that. I want to get something sweet, and then for dinner, like either the night of or the day after, probably get a nice steak.
Nice. Well, I'm with you on that. I like all of that. I like food just in general, just like I like movies. So we're right here, buddy. Now, as far as the weight cut goes, you fought at both bantamweight and flyweight. This fight will be at 125. What is that weight cut like to get all the way down there?
I mean, it's harder than 135, obviously, but I don't really think I'm a big 35er. Like a lot of the bantamweights I train with are several pounds heavier than me. So 25, it's going to be a little bit of a cut, but 35 is not really much of a cut. Really, 130 would be like a perfect weight class. But my weight's been pretty good for a couple weeks now. So I think the water cut always kind of sucks no matter what you weigh, or no matter what you're cutting. But it really right now it's looking like it's not going to be that bad.
What do you weigh today?
I don't like telling people my weight.
Okay, well,
140s, low 140s.
140s. Okay, you don't have too much more to go. So it sounds like you'll make that.
Yeah, I should be good.
Yeah, no worries. So, all right, your last fight. I mean, we're going all the way back to April of 2019. You had a unanimous decision victory over Carlos Vera. Tell me a little bit about that fight and some of the obstacles you had to overcome.
That fight was good. Carlos was he was thick for 135. I'm pretty sure he's fought at 145 before. I think I saw even a 155 fight. He's from Virginia. I'm from Maryland, so I had some friends see him at a grappling tournament. He's competed kind of heavy, so he was thick, but he was good. He trains out of Ryan Hall's camp, so they're good grapplers. They have the kind of like the niche is the leg locks. But Carlos, I think even before he started training there, he was probably more of a stand-up guy. very kick-oriented, taekwondo-ish kind of style. But he was no slouch on the ground either. He was pretty well-rounded. He was a good opponent. I think when I fought him, his only loss before me was like his debut, and hats off to him because he fought a guy with like 20 fights his pro debut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that was clearly a big win, and you have a stellar record, a very impressive record. But as I mentioned earlier, it's been a year now, over a year since you fought. Do you feel like you're going to have a little bit of cage rest?
If I took off a lot of time, I feel like maybe that would be an issue. But I've been training like real consistently for a while. The thing, I was dealing with some injuries. So after the Carlos fight, I was trying to get a fight that following summer, and just nothing materialized. I accepted a couple opponents. Couple opponents didn't accept me. I accepted an opponent who accepted me, and then the promotion kind of changed the deal, supposedly, according to my manager. So that fight fell through. I really wanted to get a fight that summer, 2019 summer, and it just didn't work out. And then that fall, I ended up dealing with some injuries, so I just kind of took the fall off. And then I was ready this past spring, and I was training, and I was trying to get a fight, and it seemed like we finally had maybe like a month, couple dates in April, and then COVID hit, and pretty much all fights got shut down. So that's why that's why it's been longer than a year. I would have fought probably a year or a little under a year if coronavirus didn't hit.
Yeah. Well, you got this big fight now, a title shot for really one of the biggest promotions in the world, for that matter. You know, outside of UFC, Bellator, PFL, LFA is an amazing promotion. And you're 10-1. If you get this fight, if you get this win, you'll be 11-1. You seem to be the perfect candidate for Contender Series, or maybe even a straight up call to the UFC. Tell me, where's your head at right now? Where do you feel like you are, and what is next for you if you do get this win?
So my head's on Jimmy Flick. Like he's tough, right? So he has more fights than me. He's fought UFC veterans. So I'm focused on him mainly. I guess since you're asking, just any of them. It would be nice, ideally, right, just to get signed right after a win here. But sometimes it doesn't work. Like the last guy who had the belt, he got signed, but I think the guy before him didn't get signed right away. It took him a couple more fights. So you never know. It's just there's more people like me out there who have good records, who are just kind of waiting for their shot. Ideally, I would like to win this fight and just go right to UFC, not waste any time, just get right in there. Contender Series would be like one more step to get through, but I would do it for sure. I would do it, like, and any of those big fights from here on out. That's kind of what I need. And every opponent should be better, right? It's like Carlos was good. Jimmy's probably a little bit more seasoned. Then after Jimmy, the fight, every opponent should stylistically get a little better. I know it doesn't work, perfectly like that, but ideally every opponent you want to be a little bit better, because we're spending all this time training. I like to feel like I'm getting better each opponent, so I want the opponents to get better too. That kind of brings out the best of me.
And clearly, like we're just talking about right now, you're right on the doorstep of maybe getting in the biggest promotion of the world, where the best fighters on the planet, they're there. So having said that, what do you think makes sense for you as far as weight classes moving forward? Do you envision yourself still making this cut down to 125, or do you feel like you would have still a good shot at making a run at 135?
Honestly, I would do either. I would do whatever they need. 25, I think. Originally, they were going to get rid of like the weight class, so they started canceling all their contracts. I had a couple friends who were in the UFC at flyweight, and a bunch of them got cut. And Henry Cejudo kind of saved the division, so now they're in the process of kind of re-signing people. So if they need me at 25, I would do it, because it's probably less of a filled weight class, just because I guess smaller people are harder to come by. But 35, I feel good at. I feel strong. I'm not as big as some other 35ers, but not cutting that much weight could be a benefit. But ideally, I'd like to split between the two as much as possible. And you see people in the UFC do that, right? Like Darren Till, He's bounced weight classes. Henry Cejudo's bounced weight classes. Anderson Silva bounced weight classes. GSP, like a lot of fighters bounce weight classes. So I like to do the same. Conor McGregor, he bounced 2 or 3 weight classes. So if they will have me, I'd like to do the same wherever they need me. And I've had these kind of these close calls, I guess you would say, like with UFC over the years. Like a couple years ago, it's all through my manager. So he'll ask me what my weight is, if I'm ready. I always tell him, yeah, like let's go if UFC wants me. And they've, according to him, they've pitched me like 4 or 5 times now, and for whatever reason, I don't get that shot. It always seems like people, a couple of times, it always seems like people who get the call are already under contract, and that makes sense. Like they'd rather offer a short notice fight to someone who's already under contract than sign someone new. But a couple of times they've signed new people, so I don't know what's making them take those people over me. So I know I'm right there because I'm getting those calls, but it just 5 times. You would think probability I would get that call already, but it just hasn't worked out yet.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's right around the corner for you, my friend. Let's talk about this fight with Jimmy, LFA 86. It's in South Dakota. I just interviewed him a week and a half ago, I believe, and he was telling me about the travel restrictions, how they don't want you to fly. They're going to be, I guess, shipping you there in a bus. Is that accurate for you too, or is it different based on where you're at in the country?
I think I'm probably a little bit farther than him, so they're supposed to fly me. They're supposed to fly me in one corner. And that's the other thing. I think just because they're trying to keep the amount of people down in the arena, I think we're only allowed one corner, maybe 2, but they're only paying for travel for me in one corner. So we're flying there.
Who's making the trip with you?
My head coach from Method MMA in Maryland. I was gonna try to get one of the guys, my coach Harry, out here, but he's busy. So my head coach. My head coach has been there for all my fights, amateur, pro, and I, even though I do camps out here, I spend a lot of time back home and working with him. So and we're close, right? So you want somebody who's kind of has your best interest in heart, and so we're kind of on the same page there. So I'd like him in my corner.
Yeah. Tell me, would you rather get punched in the nose or have the COVID swab all the way up your nose if you had to choose one or the other?
I think I'm more conditioned to get punched in the nose. So I'd much rather do that because I already, as fighters, we do that all the time.
Right.
But the nose thing, when I was younger, I had a staph infection and they had to do that nose culture, and that shit sucked. It was not fun. And I was younger then, so I think like it still doesn't look fun when I'm watching like the UFC people do it. But at least I've kind of been through it, so it's gonna suck. I'm just prepping for it to suck.
Yeah, well, you'll get through it, no problem, I'm sure. Let's talk about this fight with Jimmy. He seemed to think that both of you guys are grapplers, and when a grappler fights another grappler, sometimes that cancels one another out, and it ends up being a stand-up fight. What kind of a stylistic fight do you think we're going to see here come this fight night?
It's hard to say. He's a solid grappler. He has a lot of submission wins. I like to think I'm a solid grappler. I feel like I'm pretty well-rounded too. But then again, he has kickboxing fights too. Like that's what's so fun about MMA. It really could go anywhere. Just kind of like the Dan Hooker Dustin fight the other day. It's like you'd think both guys are more strikers, but it's like there were submission attempts and wrestling and they were on the ground and pound, and that was all over. So I feel like it's gonna be like that. I just gotta prep for everything because you never know on fight day. It could depending how you do one round, you might try to keep it there. He might want to keep it on the feet. He might want to shoot. Mixed martial arts is so crazy. That's what makes it so fun and fun as a fan is because there's so many options. So you just, as a fighter, you just got to kind of be ready for everything.
When I interviewed Jimmy, he guarantees a finish. He says he doesn't like to leave it to the judges. I'm sure you look at this fight a little bit differently than him. Where do you feel you're going to have the biggest advantage in this fight? And tell me, how do you see this fight finishing?
I feel like my hand's going to be raised at the end of it. And I know he feels like his hand is going to be raised at the end of it. But I guess you're just going to have to tune in July 24th on Fight Pass to find out.
Are you excited to be fighting on Fight Pass, and does that add any extra pressure on you?
I'm real excited to fight on Fight Pass. I mean, that's a huge opportunity, and it's cool too because since there's no audience here, people back home can watch it. Honestly, I had a bunch of people back home hit me up and were asking about tickets and things like that to fly out to South Dakota, which is awesome that they would support me like that. But there's no audience here, so everyone just has to kind of tune in on Fight Pass.
Yeah, well, I will for sure be tuning in on Fight Pass. Can't wait for this title fight. LFA 86 goes down, obviously, July the 24th. Before I let you go, I got to get your picks for UFC 251. I'm sure you'll be watching. Who do you like in those 3 title fights?
Oh, gosh. Rose Namajunas, that's not the title, right?
No, you got the 135, 145, both men's titles, and then the welterweight title with Usman and Masvidal.
I think I'm pulling for Aldo just because I'm a huge fan of him. Even again, watching UFCs before I ever even started back before he was even in UFC. WEC Aldo was like one of the best fighters. So I'm pulling for him, but Petr Yan he's a savage. So I'm really looking for that fight. Jan's probably the favorite. My gut's telling me he's going to win, but I'm pulling for Aldo. I'm also pulling for Holloway, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see. He said he's only been doing like Zoom classes. He could just be joking. We'll see how it goes. That fight I could see going either way, but I'm pulling for Holloway. The main event, I'm pulling for Masvidal. I think just if he's got almost 50 fights, if he can pull this off on 6-day notice with a 15-hour flight jet lag and the short notice weight cut, if all the stars align and he can pull this off, I think that would be like one of the coolest wins ever. Not only, and he already has the record for fastest knockout, so it'd be cool just to add that to the collection. But I don't know, Usman's a beast, so I'm going to be watching as a fan that night and just kind of enjoy it either way.
No doubt. Well, I really appreciate the time, Greg. Before I do let you go, if there's anyone you'd like to thank, any sponsors you may have, or any social media you'd like to plug, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to follow me, GFisher3 is my Instagram. I'm on Facebook too, just not quite as much. Sponsors, I have a bunch of sponsors, so I don't want to forget anyone. Main Street Cigar and Pipe Company, Spartan Cigar, Pat's Pizza, State Line Canine, dog training, Eats and Sweets. Who else? Blue River Pool Service is a big one. TSW Roofing Solutions, Bartenfelder Sanitation. I'm forgetting some people. Oh, Euromotive Auto Service, Forest Hill, Maryland. They do great work. That might be it. Shout out to Method MMA too, my home gym, JacksonWink, my fight camp gym, and I know I'm forgetting a sponsor, so forgive me, whoever I'm forgetting. I have a list of them, but I don't want to exit the chat to run down the list.
Well, you clearly have a lot of people that support you. I'm sure that they'll see this interview and be proud of what you're doing here moving forward to this title fight. Again, I really appreciate the time, and let's do it again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.